I mean, what will it take from your experience for us not to worry about this, for this not to happen again, especially as it has twice in the last 2 months?
It's unconscionable, the fact that we're talking about this just a little over 2 months after the first assassination attempt. It's obvious. Second attempt. Just think back in just July 12th, the day before the first assassination attempt, we arrested a Pakistani national with ties to Iran, who one of the targets he was looking at was President Trump. The threat is real, and we need to make sure we do a better job at pushing out the perimeter and making sure we're not dealing with a man with a rifle.
Yeah, ironically, I'll be in court tomorrow. The Pakistani suspect, a Pakistani man who is charged, will be arraigned here in New York City for that very conspiracy. He had spent some time in Iran, and there is also concern about Iran's threats. We know that they want to try to assassinate former President Trump and other high-level officials for retaliation of the killing of Soleimani. That we don't know if that was this.
Since the very beginning, we have been making this call. Israel is spoiled and is carrying out state terror in an outlawed way, and the only thing that can stop it is the alliance of Islamic countries.
I've never been more worried about another 9/11 against America than I am right now. The withdrawal from Afghanistan put every jihadist on steroids. We have a broken border. There are more terrorists in our country than any time I can remember associated with terrorism. So on 9/11, we're just living on borrowed time here at home, and Israel may have to strike to prevent a nuclear-armed Iran. If the Ayatollah, who's a religious Nazi, had a nuclear weapon, he would use it. It's just not Ukraine. The entire world is on fire.
See, John Graphic describes this government, this entity that he's going to rule over and rule from. It has 7 heads. And later on in chapter 17, it says the head and 7 heads, there's 7 mountains, which I find is interesting. It has 10 horns, which refers to nations or dominions, we're told later on. It has 7 crowns, which means it has leaders or rulers that go from 10 down to 7 and ultimately become consolidated into the power of one. 4 times John talks about this. He said, I saw a beast rising in chapter 13 out of the sea. That means coming out of humanity. That the beast is I believe, a person. Some people think it's a system, a government, but these things are melded together. But he seems to be an individual having 7 heads, 10 horns, and his horns 10 crowns. But most importantly, it says, and on his head are words, names of blasphemy. That his entire orientation of this new governmental agency is to overthrow the kingdom of God, to resist it and to take over. Now, all of this stuff would be little more than cryptic scribblings were it not for the book of Daniel and the visions that God gave to him. And it's kind of interesting because when you come to the end of the book of Revelation, John is told, don't seal the book because it's for the time of the end. In other words, it's supposed to be understandable. It's supposed to be read. It's supposed to be able to look at it and see this transpiring within the world. But at the end of Daniel's book, which predates it by 700 years, it said, seal these things and don't let people understand them, in other words, until you come to the end. And what Daniel told us that in his visions of the end time, he said there will be 4 dominating world empires, and we are told who they are within Daniel's prophecy. The first is the Babylonian Empire. The second is the Persians, who overthrew the Babylonians, and the Persians then were overthrown by the Greeks, and the Greeks were overthrown by the Romans. Final. It's easy. But then he says there's a final empire, excuse me, that appears to rise out of the remnants of that Roman Empire. He says of it in chapter 7 of Daniel, it'll be different from all other kingdoms. It shall devour the whole earth. In other words, it's a truly global power. It'll trample it and break it in pieces. So he'll destroy wonderfully is one of the ways that Daniel puts it. It has 10 horns and 10 kings who shall arise from this kingdom, and it will be partly strong and partly fragile. They will mingle, but they will not adhere to one another. Just as iron does not mix with clay. And later on in chapter 8, he says that a king shall arise with having fierce features who understands sinister schemes. His power shall be mighty, but not by his own power. He destroys fearfully and shall prosper and thrive, and he shall destroy the mighty, also the holy people. through his rule. Through his cunning he shall cause deceit to prosper, and he shall exalt himself. Paul later tells us he will exalt himself to be equal with God. He shall destroy many in their prosperity. He shall even rise against the prince of princes, but he shall be broken without human means. So we're told these things about this entity that's coming.